Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new digital talk. Today, we are joined by Dominik. He's the head of change EMEA at Kpis. So glad you're here. Hi, Dominik.
Very happy to be here. Hi, Felix.
Great. Cool. So, Dominik, why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself, what you are doing, and then we get right into the topic.
Absolutely. Very happy to do so. So, quick introduction on my side. I'm Austrian, so I love skiing. Felix and I had a quick chat about that. On the professional side, I'm not a professional skier, but I've been probably around 15 years in HR and then moved over into consultancy, where I've been around 2.5 years. So I've seen both sides of what a project can be, implementing HR software on the customer side, but also then supporting software implementation from the supplier side, which is why I very quickly moved into the change area, which is also very close to me. And I've been dealing with change projects over the last 2 years here within Kpis from different ranges and sizes across the whole EMEA region.
Nice. Yeah, and I think, in our conversation we had before, we had some very interesting insights. And what we want to talk about today is all about project success. And specifically, we want to look at why digital adoption is the fourth dimension of project success. And you talk a lot about how software projects are similar to designing a beautiful car, right? How companies, when they implement, in your case, as Kpis, implementing a Workday, right? So an HR system, and how organizations have the goal to make it like the most beautiful car ever built. I spent a lot of time specifying everything, the color, the interior, and stuff like that. And it sounds to me like a good approach, right? If you implement a new software, you want to have it perfect. You want to build it perfectly. But why do you think, what is wrong with this approach?
So very happy to pick up on the analogy. So outside skiing, my second hobby is cars. I've actually restored a 1971 BMW, and this is the summer hobby. But onto the professional side again. So I've seen projects as a customer and then also as implementation partner where all the focus is on getting things right on the technical side. So, the usual triangle in project management where you're on time, you're on budget, you're actually hitting the scope. If you do that, you call it good project management, mission accomplished, which in a way is true, but it's not good enough. You actually lose out on the dimension of are people driving the car. So you spend a lot of effort building a bespoke vehicle, doing it in a very good way, spending a lot of effort, making sure that the engine purrs nicely, that you have a smooth ride. But you actually forget about thinking that people want to drive it in the end and to make sure that they're driving it. So using the analogy, as we said, we see very often customers being so focused on getting things right on the technical side that they end up with this beautifully built vehicle that then is put into the garage because they expect everyone will be excited and saying, this is great technology, and will be using it and driving fast around the corners like a race car driver. And then in the end, it sits there in the garage. It just collects a bit of dust, and people are not so keen and not so excited jumping in and driving it. And this is where, from my personal perspective, and also what we see on projects, we just run a big risk that the overall project success falls through, because it's not just about building the vehicle, it's about driving it. And this is what I feel is a bit of a shortcoming when you look at the traditional model of what is project success, which is why I'm such a strong advocate saying, think beyond. Think about people driving the car, build the system in a way that people will be happy and eager to drive it. And this is where you see that your project is successful beyond technology, because a lot of HRIS implementations, they are not just, we are implementing a system, we are switching software on. It's literally transforming the organization, meaning you have to take people along in terms of changing their roles, modifying their behavior, modifying communication and interaction in an organization. And this is not just happening by making technology great and thinking that people will just be using it. It's literally making sure that you factor in someone driving it at the end.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I'm wondering, because you mentioned that the projects are too technical driven, right? So would you say that this is part of the wrong setup of the implementation team? So, to stay with the analogy, right? Are there only engineers on the project and no one else? So is it maybe a lack of of the right people in the project team, or what do you think is the reason why companies spend only so much time on the technical side of things and not on the user side?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I actually think it's twofold. So on the one hand, it's true, if you just let engineers do the work, they build a brilliant car, and they will not think so much about the driver angle and is it oriented towards the user. And this is part of the activity, which is why in change management, we are usually sitting within the project. So when we are engaged in change management activities, we form one of the streams. There are functional streams, there are data streams, there are integration streams, and there's a change stream who sits on the table similar to the others and has their own mandate. The other thing is, I think just there's a mental model underlying this where the thought about what is the project is less driven by this is a transformation initiative. So we need to take people along. We need to embrace the users. We need to think about the users, aka the drivers. And it's very often put into this a bit naive view of technology will heal everything, which it doesn't. Technology is an enabler. Technology can be very good in helping us do stuff, but it will not take away that humans are the actual parties interacting in a company. When I talk to customers, I very often tell them, think about Workday as an excellent system of record or system of transaction, but it will not take people's jobs away. People will still need to think. They still will need to apply common sense. They still will need to own their decisions. They still will need to communicate. A system doesn't take all of that away. So I think it's a bit of a mental model that says technology will resolve things on its own, like magic. Whilst it doesn't, technology is an enabler, and we need to see it like that. And we need to be clear that the actual factors of what is a successful company is people making successful by interacting, by working together, by driving the car.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice comparison to, that technology isn't just, a self-fulfilling prophecy there, right? That it's just being used. I mean, if I give my grandmother like the latest iPhone, right? She's not like, oh, great, it's so pretty. She actually has like a super old phone because they were simpler, right? And she can use it easier. But it's similar, right? Just because you have a new system built, you give it to the users. The first reaction isn't always great. Another piece of technology that's finally there. It's more seen as another thing to learn, to manage, to navigate. And so it's often, I guess, also based on past experience, not very well received.
Absolutely.
What I think we could maybe dive into, because you mentioned this project triangle, right, where you have the three traditional dimensions of measuring the project success. So you say that we need a fourth dimension of project success, right? But why don't we stay initially with the three traditional ones? So why don't you give us some insights about the traditional way of measuring project success, what this triangle usually entails?
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with the project management triangle. And obviously, we use it to measure against those KPIs. One of the key measurements, are we sticking to the timeline? Are we delivering on time? It's quite normal. If you get stuff delivered in your house, you also look at, is it coming on time or is it delayed? So I think it's quite natural. The other thing is, are you within budget or are you overspending? Because financials do matter. Resources do matter that we are spending. So making sure that we are not overspending is, again, a quite natural thing that you would use on your own in your household as well. The third thing is obviously the scope and the quality that it entails. Does it actually do what you intend that it's built to do? And again, scope and quality is quite relevant, because if you buy a new kitchen and it doesn't do what it should do because there's no oven, then you have an issue. So these are in themselves quite natural. And they are relevant and they should be there. We are using them. I'm just saying that we need to go beyond because this triangle, it serves the purpose of saying, does it work? And do we stay within budget? Is it there when we want it to be there? It does not say if people are actually then going to use the kitchen to cook or use the car to drive. And at the end, what good is a car that's not driven? What good is a kitchen that you're not using for cooking and it's just for showroom? So it's thinking beyond just the pure product. It's thinking into application use case, people using stuff to do something. Think about a simple analogy. If you talk about a ladder to climb up a tree, the ladder serves a purpose, but exactly the purpose to get up on that tree. If you're up you can drop that ladder. You don't need it anymore because you're already where you wanted to go. But all of the business initiatives that are technology driven, they want to go somewhere. So you want to go to a certain spot. It's by nature a change initiative. You want to do something different than before. And when you spend a long time talking about the vehicle or the medium or the ladder that you use, you actually end up losing focus on where you want to get. What's your end result? What's the end game that you're in? And in the car analogy, it's quite simple. You want that car to be driven. That's the point. Unless you're a collector, then you might want to have it sit around. But rarely those projects that we are in are about, let's build a very fancy and nice system, spend a lot of budget and time, and then let it sit around. There's an actual business purpose. There's a business case. There's a certain need. Like you have the competition, you have global markets, you want to be faster, you want to be more data-driven. There's good reasons why you do that. So putting your project at risk by saying, technically, it's totally fine, it's flawless, it's a brand new, gorgeous vehicle, and then not using it for the business purpose that you intend, it simply puts the project at risk. It puts the business case, the whole investment at risk. And companies spend a lot of time and a lot of effort on actually having systems implemented in a modern way, going through digitalization initiatives. So I literally think if you let the user perception, the user adoption, the people driving the car fall through, you just run the risk that your project is not as successful and you don't realize the business case, which is a pity because you're spending quite a lot of time and effort to have a beautiful vehicle sitting in the garage, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess a few companies could do that, right? But like you said, you spend a lot of time, also resources and energy to transform the business, right? And if you then have this as a shelfware, I mean, it doesn't really help you nor the business. So I think it's almost like an insurance to your project, right? That you say, I don't only look at the three important aspects, but we also look at adoption to really have an insurance of our whole investment.
Yes.
To then drive the business case in the end.
It's in a way securing the business case. And we do see more and more steering committees and executives actually asking on KPIs beyond go live. So like, what's our adoption rate? What are the key performance indicators on people using the system and tracking this over the first couple of months in the nurturing stage until it's settled in after 6 months and maybe even the first year. This is where you measure the true project success beyond go live. Because again, with the triangle, it works perfectly fine to bring you to the point of saying the car can be released, but that's not the end of the story. It's just not good enough. The story that you have in mind when you invest is that you say, I want this to be driven. I want to win the race by using a fast car.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also a way to extend the project accountability to a longer period, right? Like with the traditional triangle, like you said, you measure from the project start to the go live, but you have a blind spot in everything that happens afterwards, right?
Yes.
So with your approach, it's also like a broader approach to project management, but you really make sure you deliver end to end, and you not only deliver to half of the success. So I mean, you mentioned how long the adoption should be measured. So what's your take? So do you stay just in the hypercare phase with the client? And also, I think with Workday, you don't implement all modules, right? So they are layered after like many months or years later. So how long do you measure the user adoption as part of the project success?
Yeah. So it's a very good question, Felix. Actually, this is where we distinguish between the technical/functional aspects of a project, where the triangle would apply, and the change aspects. Our functional project usually ends with go live and with hypercare. So there's a technical view in terms of when is formally the project done. On the change aspect, we actually early on push to say your technical go live is one step in the journey. We are way more interested in your user go live because that's what matters. And then beyond, because even the user go live is just one step, a quite big one though, in the journey of using a system and making sure that users adopt it. So we usually build models that we help customers to survive the first 6 to 8 weeks in good fashion, which is kind of nurturing and nursing the new product that they release to the end users. And then we work out measures to actually focus on how do you determine what's successful adoption for day one, month one, month 6, month 12, so that they can use this, looking at this from the whole business perspective. Because also, if you look at introducing a new HRIS system, some of the features will be there as of day one. Some of those you will not be using immediately, but you need to get acquainted. And one of the big examples that I see is if you talk, for example, data ownership or data quality. People think this is a spot that you hit and then you're there. It's actually a mindset, how you approach data, who owns data to be accurate and updated, notably with self-service. You talk about habits. You talk about people changing the way they do things normally. And this is not going to come in within a day and even not within a week. It's something that people get used to. They get used to using self-service, and they get used to using data that they have on their fingertips in a data-driven way to actually review, evaluate, and take decisions. But it's a mindset change that needs to happen. It's literally transforming the way people work. And this is not happening overnight. So which is where we are very conscious to say, put this up as a goal because it's relevant, but put it up in a realistic way because people need to get into it. You will have early adopters who are already keen and who have this vision and mindset of what does it mean to have a data-driven organization. And you will have other people who are just busy with their day job, who don't want to be bothered too much by a new system that actually puts work on top of them because they need to learn it. So give them time until they actually get to the point that they can drive the car.
Yeah. I mean, like everyone went to driving school, right? So it takes some time until you can, take turns and stuff like that. But you mentioned something very interesting there around data quality, right? And maybe we dive into and break down user adoption a little bit further, because I mean, like it's like intuitively you say, okay, user adoption means someone can use the system, right? But that's a very, very vague, very soft definition. So do you measure some KPIs with regards to user adoption that companies could track after go live, where they can get like a proxy for a good or bad user adoption?
So I'd probably phrase the question a bit broader. Yes, we do use KPIs, and there are some standard ones that in the first step over the first 1 or 2 weeks are how many people are logging on and using it immediately after they receive the go live announcement. We do track some initial transactions that people do that might be low-hanging fruits. In Workday, one of the common examples is how many people log in and change their photo or upload their photo. It's actually something nice. It's more of a gimmick. It's not business critical, but it's a way to tease them to say, get onto it and try it. Obviously, when we look at adoption, there's, again, different layers to look at. So we usually aim supporting via change management to, first of all, make people aware of what's coming. So awareness being critical. If they don't know that something's going to hit them and that it's going to have an impact on them, they might be in danger of actually losing out on something that they need to do or want to do. Once we've created the awareness, we want to create the appetite and the interest in saying, this is new, this is good. Change is actually positive in a way that it will make their life easier and there will be benefits that they will receive. So basically leading them to say, there's something in it for you. Once we've created interest, we move to the steps of enablement. So helping them, supporting them like driving school and driver lesson. It's there for a reason, to actually feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, I can get on and use it. And then the further level is from enablement to being comfortable and competent in using it in a way that they say, I understand what I can do with this, and I can not only drive 30 on the motorway, I can go 100. I can drive fast around the corners, mastering the system, and actually realizing the potential that might be on data capability like real-time reporting, which Workday, for example, is very good at. And it requires a certain mindset to actually go there and use it. It's like driving fast around the corners. If you have your driver's license, you couldn't do it yet. So you first need to get into your routine, get acquainted to the system, see how it behaves and feel comfortable. And then to reach this level of competence to say, I can go beyond. And maybe even starting to redefine their needs and requirements. In the long run, we see the most advanced HR organizations not being service providers in the typical sense, but being product owners. So they own, for example, the employee experience. And they have business users who are their internal customers who can phrase their needs, as in requirements. What would they like to use the system for? What would they like to get in terms of results or user experience. And the product owners then would go back and think about how can they realize such an approach. So it's literally redefining how you interact within the organization using technology, where you have someone creating a need or a demand, someone as a product owner interacting like with an account management relationship, and then thinking about how can we turn this into a solution that fits that need that the internal business user has required.
Interesting. I mean, you're talking a lot about mindset, right? So it seems like it's a mindset change for the users, right? It's a mindset change also how companies think project, but also after that, right? That it's not finished and you're done, but you're more like a product owner and kind of continuously developing it, getting feedback, and then, also just improving it and improving the end user experience. But when we talk about mindset, I mean, the term change management is not very far, right? Because this is what change management is essentially about, like establishing a different mindset, which includes like routines, ways of doing things. And I mean, you state that change management isn't really optional. It's like a critical thing you need to have within a project. What's the role of change management in a software project based on your experience?
So one of the first mistakes that customers could make is underestimating the change impact and the transformational need. Considering it, again, as a pure technology project, we implement technology, we switch it on, the triangle is met, it's all good, the car is beautiful. It means that the car is beautiful. It doesn't mean that it's driven. Change management is actually the layer addressing the drivers, looking at the world from the driver's perspective and the views. If you reduce a Workday project, for example, to just technology implementation, and you don't provide supporting means and measures to actually get the transformation along, you roll the dice and run a big risk of the project falling through and failing because there's no user adoption at the end. What do we see on projects that don't do change? So we see that the business case is delayed. Users are not feeling comfortable and competent using the system. They try to find ways around it. The data quality will be bad because people will just put in what they think might be the right thing. So someone needs to clean it up afterwards, which creates additional effort. They will be frustrated because they don't feel good about the system. They don't feel like, oh, this is a nice car, let me drive it, and I can handle it. So this immediate feeling when you step in and you say, okay, this is the gear stick. I feel I actually can use it. So this positive feeling that you get when you are familiar enough with something, which means that you actually delay the change activities. They never go away. So it would be a bit naive to say it will work out. We don't need to do it. People will pick it up on their own. It's like putting the car in front of them and say, look how gorgeous. Look, the trim, look the color. It's so beautiful in the sun. And then thinking that people will just pick up on it. Yeah, there might be one or two. But if you talk larger organizations, you are not going to get everyone with that approach, just putting the nice car in front of them. And it means that the change activities that you actually should do during a project with Go Live and beyond are just going to be delayed, which means the whole benefit that you have from introducing the system is going to be delayed like half a year or a year. And the change activities are deferred instead of where you should put them during the project, but they will not go away. And this is where we are working with a lot of customers on this awareness topic to make them aware of the risk that they are running by not doing change initiatives, and where we see literally projects fail because they have just been dealt with in this triangle mode and not considering user adoption, not considering the right project communication, not involving people across the organization in the right way. The natural reaction of a lot of people who have not been involved or communicated to properly, they just push back for no good reason, but simply because they haven't been involved. We very often see this phenomenon of not invented here, and people then they kind of shut down. There's no real point behind this outside of not being properly involved. And this is a simple technique at the end, but if you don't do it, you fall through. So you end up with just focusing on building the nice car and not thinking about driving it. And this is where I feel strong about change management, because again, what's the purpose of spending so much money on building the nice car if no one's driving it? The whole beauty of implementing a system like Workday is that you have it in the organization, that you have it post go live and people are using it, that you have your managers or your HR people coming back and saying, yeah, we think the world is literally a better place. Instead of what we had in the past, which was outdated with a 1980s user interface, which we didn't like, where the data quality was crap. We are literally in a different league today. You obviously want to reach that point. And I was lucky enough as a customer to get there because I did my own Workday implementation in 2015. But it's literally the effort that you want to take to get to that point and not just saying, okay, technically it kind of works, but people hate it.
Yeah. And I guess also correcting the change afterwards, right? It's even more costly, right? Because then you have paid license fee for a year. You've got really this bad reaction from the organization. So getting them back on board, it takes even more time to actually get them towards accepting the new system. So, if this change is just delayed, I mean, it makes sense just include it in the beginning because you will have all the positive sides, and it's more and more cost effective also.
Absolutely, and we all know a win back is way harder than getting people up onto the game early on. We also know that people frustrated has a cost to a business. People trying to find shadow processes and ways around, again, is a cost to the business. The much higher support need that you have if you don't do proper change, again, is a cost to the business. And poor data quality, which means the result of actually having to clean up, which is additional effort that you need to take, plus don't having proper reporting in place, which you hoped for. Again, it's a cost to the business. It damages your business case. And I'm not saying that you should do change because it's so nice or it's just a good thing or it's fun, which it is, but it's literally think about your business case. Why would you want to mess up a project that might be 500,000 or 1 million or more by saying, let's roll the dice and see if people drive the car? You're actually putting yourself, your project, your own reputation at risk. Why would you do it?
Dominik, this is such a great statement. I've got nothing more to add there. Thank you very much for this insight. It was super interesting. I liked a lot of the points that you put up. And I guess if people were thinking about or are maybe planning to implement a new software and not include change management, I think is not an option anymore here. But Dominik, if people want to reach out directly or want to learn more about what you are doing at Kpis, if they maybe have a Workday project, what's the best way to reach you?
So contact me via LinkedIn or drop me an email. We are very happy to engage and to talk.
Okay, sounds good. So Dominik, good skiing. I hope. Snow's coming, so hope that you have a good skiing start. And let's talk next time.
It's been my pleasure, Felix. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.